One Piece chapter 1030 has arrived, and I cannot believe how divisive this chapter has been with the community. But real quick, before we hop into the chapter, I just have to say a huge thank you to everybody who has recently subscribed and who have subscribed in general to this channel. It really means a lot, and we are sitting at 1900 subscribers, which is a number I never thought I would get to. And we're like so close to 2,000, which I think is insane. So I just have to say a quick thank you to you guys, and you guys are the reason why I make these videos. So now on to the chapter. So we start off with Apoo and Drake, and I was wondering where the heck they were for the longest time. The last time we saw them, they were on the live floor. Drake was in dinosaur form, going in for the kill. And now here they are sitting and chatting about a potential alliance. The alliance that Apoo is proposing is that once the war is over, once Luffy or once Kaido wins, everyone's gonna be very exhausted. So they can just go in and they could just sweep up the win. They can easily kill off Kaido or Luffy, and I think that is an awful idea. I don't mean to throw shade Apoo or Drake's way, but they are not strong enough to even beat a weakened Luffy or a weakened Kaido. Like, in what world does this work out? There is no way that Drake will accept that proposal. You could argue that the numbers that they have behind them that are supporting Apoo with this plan for some reason, you could say that, oh, these guys look a lot stronger, and they do. They look stronger compared to your regular numbers. But that doesn't negate the fact that no matter who wins, they're not just Kaido and Luffy that's weakened, you have the rest of their crew to deal with as well. If Kaido wins, you have the Tobiropo, who they're injured and they're KO'd, but they can potentially stand back up and fight you. He has the executives like Jack, King, and Queen. And then you have the rest of the Beast Pirates that might not all be taken out by the Straw Hats just yet. And if Luffy wins, you have Jinbei, Brook, Rob, like you have so many people you have to deal with. There's no way the 5 of them they're gonna take on everybody else. Not to mention, Big Mom is also a major player, and her pirate crew isn't even here yet. So I think this alliance is a horrible idea. I know that it looks very appealing because, oh, once you take down Kaido and Luffy, dude, you're guaranteed to be the next emperor. But is it worth dying for? And honestly though, Drake wouldn't even accept this proposal at all because he's a Navy spy. He's an SSG. Apoo even mentions that in the beginning of this chapter, so there has to be some preferred outcome that Drake wants this to play out. And he's also a good friend of Kobe, and Kobe looks up to Straw Hat. Even during this whole raid, he was like, hey, Straw Hat, you just have to trust me, I'm on your side, just please let me join your alliance. So I feel like he's not the type of guy that would backstab Luffy in this situation. And also, like I said before, if he has any common sense, he should know that this is a very bad idea. Unless the 3 numbers that Apoo has behind him are like Yonko commander level, there's no way pulling this off. I'm not underplaying Drake, I'm not underplaying Apoo. They are strong characters in their own rights. They're part of the worst generation. But can they really beat the remaining crew of either side, plus a weakened version of Kaido or even Luffy? I honestly don't think so. The only way I see this alliance actually working out is if Apoo is like, hey, let's just take the poneglyphs and let's get out of here. Like, let's forget about this war. I don't care about Kaido, I don't care about Straw Hat. Let's just leave and live. That is the only way that this alliance could go, and I'm like, you know what? That could work. Another way this could actually play out is if Drake counters him and says, hey, instead of killing the winner or potentially escaping, why don't we help out Straw Hat? Why don't you join our side and we help clear out the live floor and you use your numbers and, you know, to take out everybody else, and if CP0 shows up, why don't you help us fight them off? Because if that happens, then imagine Straw Hat's gonna be like, oh wow, thank you Apoo, you're not that bad of a guy, why don't you join our side? Like, it's that easy. And if Drake and Apoo do alliance and they do join Straw Hat's side, they can be the ones to take on Big Mom once Kid and Law are down or, you know, tired out from fighting her. Next up, we have a very interesting segment. It's Usopp and Nami and Tama, and they're speeding through, they're making their way to the live floor, and then we run into a old friend. Yes, that is right, we are reintroduced to topless Kinemon from Punk Hazard, and it is a very strange way for Oda to show that Kinemon survived. Like, his upper torso is taking so much damage that he actually can't get off the ground. And then here's his bottom half, and it's like jumping around, having a good old jolly time, and it's even talking again too. All right, look, so I am a huge fan of killing off characters. Whether it be a Netflix show or an anime or manga, I love it when characters die because I think that progresses the character development further, it pushes the story further, and it shows like, oh, like who's gonna be alive next chapter? I don't really know what's gonna happen anymore. One Piece, and Oda specifically, he does not kill off characters lightly. He does kill off characters, but when he kills them, he makes sure that it is very important, that they have a lasting effect on the story. Kinemon, while he would leave a giant hole there, he has not yet completed his mission. His mission is to see Momonosuke become the next shogun, and it's to meet his wife. Imagine, he just never meets Otsuru. That would be insane. Imagine seeing that your husband has survived a 20-year time skip. You've been living in oppression for all your life, wondering if he'll ever come back and if Toki's prophecy will ever be fulfilled. And then one day you're like, oh wow, it was true. They're alive. Where's Kinemon? Where is he? And then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, he died fighting Kaido. Yeah, he just kind of got bashed in the head. That would be absolutely devastating. And not to mention the fact that narratively, he has so much more potential than he's used yet. So much lore can be given, so many cool interactions that he can have. So I think killing him off this early wouldn't make any sense at all. So it makes sense why Oda made him survive that attack. So while I don't like fake out deaths, I can justify it by saying, oh, Kinemon was never, supposed to be dead in the first place. Naturally, when you think of dead characters in One Piece, whether it be Whitebeard, Ace, Yasui, Corazon, Pedro, they all have a common trait, and that's that they've completed their life's mission. They have done what they wanted to do, and they passed on their will to the next person. Kinemon dying right here would be him failing Oden's wish of freeing Wano in defeating Kaido. It wouldn't make any sense to have him die so early, and I think it would just personally be a big shame if he died before he saw that sunrise and Kaido is defeated. Also, even though Kinemon did survive that attack by Kaido, he did take a substantial amount of damage, so much so that his lower half is separated from his torso. And not to mention that the torso is barely alive. He's actually gasping for air every time he talks. So I'm gonna give it a pass there. So moving on, Usopp is now on his way to find Kinemon's upper body. Kinemon can't tell what Usopp is saying because he's a pair of walking legs and somehow he could talk. But yeah, Usopp ends up drawing the crescent moon symbol on Kinemon's legs so that he knows that he's an ally. So after Usopp does this, we get one of my favorite character moments from Kinemon in a minute, where he actually says, hey, I need you to hurry up and get to me because my friends are here as well and they're also badly injured. He's not even thinking about himself, even though he's like cut in half and bleeding out to death essentially. But he's like, hey, my friends are here and they also need your assistance. So I'm assuming Usopp's gonna bring Chopper with him and they're all just gonna get healed up. I really don't think they're gonna fight again. It wouldn't make any sense, but Kanjuro does do something that I think Kinemon, it's something that only Kinemon could really put out, which if you've read a little bit further, you know what I'm talking about. So anyways, next up, Kanjuro. This guy cannot die. I've never seen a man get taken down like 3 times in a singular arc and get back up, unless you're Luffy. Kanjuro is manifesting some major MC powers because this man just will not go down. So Orochi calls him up on the Den Mushi and he's like, hey, the revenge plot has almost succeeded. Our life's work is almost done. We just need one more hoorah. I need you to take this place out and set it aflame. And so Kanjuro, with his dying breath, he draws one last artwork, which I can't imagine how he would draw that considering how big it is. But yeah, he ends up drawing his last little thing. And it is this giant flame that sets pretty much anything and everything on fire, and nobody can stop it. It's alive, it's moving, it's insane how OP this fire is. And this was made by a dying Kanjuro. If Kanjuro's Devil Fruit could cause this much destruction that easily, imagine what his Devil Fruit could have done if he was serious from the get-go. Like, the guy would be a menace. He might have been like Toby Roppo potential if he just did not like mess around that much. So Kanjuro's giant fire demon has now become a huge threat to all of Onigashima. And it's kind of funny when you think about it because there's already so many giant threats to us right now that it's kind of hard to keep count, right? Because if Luffy beats Kaido, for example, Onigashima will fall and it'll fall on Wano. And boom, everybody's dead. But if Momonosuke creates the flame clouds and he can soften the blow, then we avoid that. But if he doesn't create enough fire clouds and it does drop, and even if it has a slight friction on there, then the explosions in the basement will explode and everybody will die again. But now option number 3 even if both of those are done and satisfied, we are now under the threat of Kanjuro's giant fire engulfing everyone in Onigashima. And or the giant fire demon could also just go to the basement and set the weapons on fire and it explodes anyways. So we have so many threats to us right now and so little ways to deal with them. But first up, Kanjuro's fire demon. How are we going to deal with that? We're going to stick to this one first because I think it has the most poetic ending. The way I see this ending is Kinemon standing back up on his feet after Usopp puts him back together, and he is going to be the one that cuts Kanjuro's fire demon in half. And the reason I say it's poetic is because one, it's his best friend. Even though Kanjuro wasn't there 100% of the time, they were still really good friends at the end of the day, and Kinemon feels like it's his responsibility to take him down. And two, is because this is Kanjuro's hatred. This is his resentment towards Wano. If you remember back in Orochi's flashback when he was thinking about young Kanjuro and this little ball of hatred that he became, he symbolizes, or we view Kanjuro as this emotionless black blob, and that black blob is what the flame looks like right now. In a way, it's almost as if Kanjuro's hatred has taken physical form and it's now the threat towards Wano. And who better to cut that down than Kinemon himself, his former best friend. And not to mention the fact that Kinemon is probably the only person that can cut fire in half. So, with that being said, that's how I think that's going to end. Another potential possibility is that Yamato will come in, and we do know that she is able to use ice-based attacks, so maybe she'll be able to cool off the flames, and that's another way for Kanjuro's fires to be put to ash. So on to the next couple panels, we see Izo, Kawamatsu, and Marco all fighting a bunch of fodder on the live floor. Marco looks like he's having a hell of a time, and then this is what I really like, but we actually get to see quick glimpses of Sanji versus Queen, Zoro versus King, and Luffy versus Kaido. And must I say, Sanji still in his base form, still no raid suit, still no Diable Jambe, and actually fighting Queen with his bare legs. Pretty hype. And then we see Luffy in his base form, looking pretty dang confident, taking on a Kaido Boro breath. And then Zoro versus King, and dude, I gotta say, I love it when Zoro struggles, and that's exactly what's happening right here. And I'm honestly just really excited to get back to those fights, but I digress. This chapter is not about them, but what it is about, and what we're about to talk about here, has to be my favorite part of this chapter. A lot of people are out here throwing trash in their way, saying they didn't earn it, they don't deserve these power-ups, but I say they do. They do deserve these power-ups. Oda gave it to them, and god dang it, they're gonna use it. So, Yamato is running down to the explosives, and then boom, we see an explosion in the distance, and we see Kid flying out. It looks like Big Mom hit him with another shockwave, and it's not looking too good. It's not looking too good, man. And then we get a little flashback, a little chitter chatter between Law and Kid, and they're asking each other. I love how casual this is. Just saying, hey, did you awaken your ability? Did you do it? Can your devil fruit be awakened? And they're like, yep, but it's a last resort. It takes up too much stamina. I can't use it for that long, but it is awakened. And boy, I am so excited. I was about to make a video about Kid's potential devil fruit awakening, and I was like, man, I don't know what he's gonna be able to do. It's so crazy hype. And then this chapter, here we have it. I do have to admit, I will admit it, as big of a fan I am of Kid and Law, I will say that it did come out of left field. It is very, very sudden. I'm surprised there's not more buildup towards it. But, you know, let alone, they do have this awakening. We have not seen them train for it, and I think that's fine. They're not the main character. They're not Luffy, Zoro, or Sanji. It makes sense why we don't see Kid training. It makes sense why we don't see Law training to achieve their Devil Fruit awakening. We witness the story from the perspective of Luffy and his adventures and how he trains, and the rest of the Straw Hats as well. So it makes sense why we don't see what Kid is doing in his spare time. We don't know Kid's hobbies. We don't see him learning how to make this giant metal monster. We don't see him when he first put his arm together. So it makes sense as to why he would have this, and we don't really know about it. The reason why I say it's sudden is because there's no real build up to it, because it's like, oh yeah, here's his base form. You know, Kid is kind of strong. He's not really putting too much of a fight up. And then boom, he gets us like this 5,000% power boost, and now he can awaken. That is the only problem I had. I wish he had like some mid-level, something to like kind of step it up gradually. Like, oh, he's strong right now in base form, and then boom, he has like, you know, a gear second, and then boom, he has his awakening. Going from base form to awakening right off the bat is the only problem that I have, and that's a very small problem too. Like, it doesn't even matter, because the hype that we get behind this is pretty crazy. So, first up, Law activates his awakening mode. and it is insane. It is honestly kind of crazy that he can put his room on his sword, and he's like, oh yeah, now I can just straight up stab you, and it doesn't matter how strong your haki is, it doesn't matter how strong your body is, it's gonna pierce you and do internal damage. Beforehand, Law couldn't really do anything to people that were stronger than him, hence why he couldn't really do anything against Doflamingo when they were fighting. And I'm currently rewatching Dressrosa, and boy, did Law get his butt handed to him. But yeah, if you're stronger than Law and have better haki than he does, there's a good chance that he can't cut you up or do anything too crazy to you. But adding Awakening to his sword, it gives him the ability to pierce through that and do direct internal damage. That shield you have, that haki body you have right now, doesn't really matter because you'll just go into your organs. And I know it's dumb to power scale an ability based off of how much blood it draws from your opponent, but boy, this draws blood from Big Mom, which is not a feat that a lot of people can say they've done before. And then right after that, as Big Mom is falling to the ground, Kid activates his Awakening and he turns Big Mom into a giant magnet, which I think is kind of strange. I don't know why he went with this, but yeah, he activates Shibaku Tensei. All the metal from the two buildings start tearing apart and they all just slam towards her, and Law just ends up shooting her to the ground. It looks really cool. I think Kid and Law make a really good tag team. But yes, this does a lot of damage to her, I would assume. Obviously Big Mom is not down for the count. I doubt she took that much damage, to be honest, but she still felt that. One thing that is concerning about this though, like no matter how hyped this looks, these are not attacks that will finish off a Yonko. Like I just said it a second ago, but I'm gonna say it again. Big Mom is not defeated. She is a long way from being defeated. But Kid and Law, their timers, I would assume they're up. They mentioned that, hey, we can barely use this. This is like a last resort. Once we use this, we're like exhausted. So now their plan is to run away. I'm wondering if we're gonna get a Luffy timer kind of situation where Luffy's running from Doflamingo or Kaido and he's like, hey, I need like 5 or 10 minutes to regain my haki and get my bearings back. I wonder if Kid and Law are gonna go through that situation where they're like, hey, we want to fight Big Mom, we want to take her down, but we also can't really do anything for like 5 or 10 minutes because we're kind of drained. So hey, fodder, please fight her. But if that is the case, we have the perfect person to stall a Yonko in the form of Yamato. Yamato was right there. She saw the whole thing go down. So I can see her potentially stalling Big Mom until Kid and Law get back up on their feet. But this does, bring up the dilemma earlier of, hey, there's explosives in the basement, and that was Yamato's original goal. But with Kinemon now potentially being revived, and with him going to stop the fire demon from going to the basement, that could put a new person onto that play. All right, so Awakenings. Law's Awakening, I think, is pretty busted. I'm glad he has a timer to it. It's just so crazy how we could just do internal damage. He's always been able to do this, right? Like, ever since we met Law, I always believed that Law had one of the more broken abilities of One Piece. Oda has to constantly nerf the guy or give him limitations, or else Law would just be absolutely monstrous. I like his Awakening, and I think it works really well. It kind of reminds me of Whitebeard, and if you really think about it, Whitebeard was a Paramecia Devil Fruit Eater, where he has a Quake fruit and he can create quakes with his hands. But if you remember in Marineford, he actually puts the Quake fruit on his spear and he swings it and boom, like earthquakes are shattered everywhere from his spear. This happens this chapter with Law, where he puts his room on his sword and he's able to use it and stab Big Mom. So it makes me wonder, did Oda kind of foreshadow Awakening all the way back in Marineford? Naturally, I'd say no, because Oda didn't really think about haki back then. But he could say, hey, that was Awakening, and it fits in line with what we saw this chapter, so I'd believe it. So now, Kid's Awakening. I love what they did here. It's exactly what you'd expect out of his Awakening, but there is one thing I have to say. I really wish he had the ability to push and pull things, just like Pain from Naruto, because when you think of magnetism, it's about pushing and pulling, not just attracting. And imagine if Big Mom is like charging at him and he's like, oh, here we go, and then he just blows her away and she slams into a wall. That would do a lot of damage, and I think that's what he needs right now. Or maybe he creates a giant like metal fist and he's like, like come to this, and then instead of like him running and punching them, like they fly into his fist. I think that would work really well. And people have always been mentioning this, but there is a giant sword outside of Onigashima, and people are like, oh, like he's gonna use that giant sword and he's gonna stab Big Mom. Big Mom, meet Big Sword. Also, I'm not pulling the pushing and pulling thing out of my butt, because Kid has done this before. If you remember pre-time skip Kid, he actually shot pieces of metal at random Marines, and even at the beginning of Onigashima, when he's on the ship with Luffy and Law, Law uses shambles and he teleports to the other ship. Luffy flings himself really far, and then Kid actually uses his magneticism to fling himself to the other ship. He's like, ah, here we go, and then he just starts flying. So we know Kid has the ability to do this, but we just haven't seen it yet because obviously his awakening is so brand new. Ooh, okay, so that was a lot to talk about this chapter. I really liked it. I can see why people don't like this chapter because, you know, you have Kinemon living, you have Kanjuro still alive somehow, even though he got knocked down 3 times. And then you have Kid and Law awakening their devil fruits before Luffy, and it's also kind of off screen because we don't see them work towards it. It's really just, oh, they're weak and then boom, they're super strong now, which is my main complaint. But it, like I said, it's so minor, it doesn't even matter. I just enjoy the story for what it is, and I really love these fights, and I really hope that Big Mom gives them some trouble. Imagine Big Mom waking up from the rubble. She moves out of the side and she's like, you think that's an awakening? Let me show you a devil fruit awakening. So anyways, guys, that is where I'm ending this video. If you've watched up until this point, please leave a like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. And like I said, if you leave a comment, I will read every single comment out there. It really makes my day to read them. And just seeing you guys talk about One Piece, it's kind of cool to see what theories you guys have as well. But with that being said, my name is Sai, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week since there is no break. Peace.